Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Asad Abbas.
This lecture comprises of three parts. In part 1, we will discuss the causes of software errors. In part 2, we will discuss the foundational concepts of cost of software quality. Whereas in part 3, we will discuss the models for cost of software quality, and we will discuss two models here, that is, the classic model for software quality and the extended model of software quality.
Here we discuss the causes of software errors. In literature, there is a lot of discussion on the causes of software errors. So here we will discuss some of the causes that result in the errors in software systems. The first cause we discuss here is the faulty definition of requirements. Sometimes these requirements they might be prepared by the clients, and that actually proves to be one of the causes of the software errors. So the most common errors of this type are like erroneous definition of requirements or absence of vital requirements. Similarly, incomplete definition of requirements. For instance, some portions of the requirements that are integral part of the completion of specific task, they're not included. Similarly, inclusion of unnecessary requirements or functions that are not expected to be used in the near future, they are actually listed as the requirements, and that actually results in the errors in the later stages. Then the second cause of software errors is client-developer communication failures. Misunderstandings resulting from in fact ineffective client developer communication are additional causes for the errors that prevail in the early stages of the development process. And these misunderstandings include like misunderstanding of the client's instructions as stated in the requirements document, or misunderstanding of the client's requirement changes presented to the developers in written form during the development period, or the misunderstanding of the client's requirements changes presented orally to the developer during the development period. Then the third cause is deliberate deviation from software requirements. Uh, in several circumstances, developers may deliberately deviate from the documented requirements that often uh, causes in software errors. The errors in these cases are, in fact, a byproduct of the change. uh, the most common situations of deliberate deviations are like when the developers reuse some modules from an earlier project without sufficient analysis of the changes and adaptations that are needed to correctly fulfill all the new requirements. Similarly, due to time or budget pressures, the developers decide to omit part of the required functions in an attempt to cope with these requirements. Likewise, sometimes the developers themselves introduce some improvements or minor changes to the projects without clients' approval. So these minor changes may also be a cause of the software errors. Then the next cause is logical design errors. Software errors can be introduced in the systems when the professionals who design the system, for example, software engineers, analysts formulate the software requirements. So the typical errors that may emerge, they include like the definitions that represent software requirements by means of erroneous algorithms. Similarly, another logical design error could be related to sequencing errors in any particular process. That is, the appropriate sequence for performing certain process activities is not uh, maintained, which results in the design errors. The other logical design errors, they include erroneous definitions of boundary conditions and omission of required software states. Then the next cause of the software errors is coding errors. In fact, a broad range of reasons actually cause programmers to make uh, coding errors. These include like misunderstanding the design documentation, linguistic errors in the programming languages, errors in the application of um, case and other development uh, tools, or errors in data selection, and so on. The sixth cause of software errors is non-compliance with documentation and coding instructions. In fact, almost every development unit or department has its own documentation and coding standards that uh, define the content, order, and format of the document and the code created by the team members. To support this requirement, the unit develops and publicizes its templates and coding instructions. And members of the development team or unit are required to comply with these instructions and requirements. In case of non-compliance to the instructions, the errors may originate. Then the seventh cause is shortcoming of the testing process. The shortcoming of the testing processes such as like incomplete test plans, failure to correctly document and report errors, etc., are also among the reasons for software errors. Then the next cause for software errors is procedure errors. That is, incorrect implementation of procedures or processes also results in the errors in the software systems. Then the last cause of software errors is documentation errors. That is the documentation errors that trouble the development and maintenance teams, are in fact the errors in the design documents and in the other documents that are related to the development of software. So that's all about our discussion on the correctness and defects. It is important to mention here that whatever is the reason for software errors, that ultimately affects the quality of the software systems. The materials in this video are based on our course books titled Software Quality Assurance from Theory to Implementation by Daniel Gallen and Software Quality Engineering, Testing, Quality Assurance, and Quantifiable Improvement by Jeff Tian. For more details, you can consult these books. Thank you.